All right. So, welcome to the podcast. I know there hasn't been an episode out for a little bit. I've been literally traveling, getting everything ready. I went to a trip in Savannah, enjoyed it with my friends, and it was just a fun time. And um, then I had another trip in Orlando. So I've been everywhere. So I think now that I don't have anything planned until end of October, so maybe I can just chill for a little bit and start just banging out these podcast episodes. So I have my wine. That's how you know some cheese is going to be happening. It's like, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. All right. Before we get into it, so today's episode is all going to be about this video that PragerU did. It's a short documentary on how important men are in the household. And I think that it's first time me watching it. A friend that I met through PragerU actually sent this to me, and she's like, "Hey, check this out." So I'm definitely gonna check this out. But before we get to the actual video, I wanted to talk about this book, The Gender Trap. Okay, this book I haven't read all of it. Okay, I've only read chapter 1, and I think it's pretty much all about the biology of male and female. They haven't really went into it, but I kind of want to take my time. I've been highlighting things just so that I could bring it up probably later in a different episode. But this is definitely a book that you guys should definitely buy. It is from Gays Against Groomers, and I think that it's a wonderful book. You guys should definitely check it out. Check out their page, buy this book ASAP. It is very, very important. Look how thick this book is too. It's not like a 15-page kind of quick reference. Like, no, like, let me just explain to you real quick on the chapters. So let me go to the table of contents. Ready? So chapter 1 is all about the biology. What is the difference between men and women? Chapter 2 says sex roles, stereotypes. Chapter 3 is becoming transgender. So it looks like chapter 3 is where it's starting to, get into it. Another one, I'm just jumping. Who's behind the trans agenda? Heller, we already know what the answer is that, but it's crazy. It's an awesome book. I haven't read all of it. So once I read all of it, I would definitely do another review, sit down and actually dissect everything. But definitely check them out. Buy this book. It's a great reader. All right. So now that that's out of the way, we're going to be actually viewing this video that PragerU put out there and responding to it. Now, I'm not going to pause as much. We are going to watch the whole video because it's like a 16-minute video. I'm going to try not to pause at every single situation. I like to do that a lot to dissect everything, but this time I'm just going to pick and choose, and at the end we can talk about it together. Okay? So let's get to it. Boom.
My name is Aldo Buttazzoni. As a young man in America, I often think about what my role in society is supposed to be.
Men are trash everywhere in this country.
Men are portrayed in the media as perverts.
Perverts are everywhere.
Buffoons.
And all these commercials are out there where the man's like the lazy guy on the couch. He's a tool.
The concept of masculinity and the perception of man's role in society is rapidly changing.
I don't need a man.
Girl, you don't need no f***ing man.
I can finance myself, I can myself, and I can feed myself.
There's so many trash men out there. Yes, they're all trash.
This shift is leaving young men like myself grappling with questions about their identity and sense of purpose.
We spent half a century telling men that the future was female and that women allegedly didn't need to rely on men for anything.
Do you think men are important? Like for what?
On a quest to find answers to these riddles and more, I spoke to everyday people on the street and invited a few respected experts to sit down and dig deep into this controversial subject.
Imagine thinking that a man is going to make you happy.
May the Lord make his face to shine upon us, a man and a woman.
So I know I said I wasn't going to stop this, but the thing is, it's true. It very is true. It's so funny. You could walk up to a man and say, "Hey, do you think mothers are important? Do you think women are very important?" And 99% of men will be like, "Yeah, they're very important." Right? They're important for children, they're important for everyday life, they're important to men. But it's almost like for women, men are not important. We don't need them. It is what it is, which is all BS because they truly, truly do need men at the end of the day. When shit hits the fan, who are they going to call, right? When things need to be built, who are they going to call? So I think that this is going to be very interesting already. And it sucks because some of these things I like. I like the real with Adrienne Bailon. Don't F with her, okay? I love her. And it's crazy. And I don't know, because she's always been super religious. So it was kind of weird how she said, I don't need a man, yet she's happily married and super religious with her man. Because God said men and women go together, right? So that was kind of like shocking to me. So let's just continue.
What are some of the stereotypes that you think of when you hear the word masculinity?
Domineering male figure, I suppose.
Unnecessarily protective. Everybody trying to put men up higher.
I think toxic is probably the first thing that comes to mind.
When you hear the word toxic masculinity, what do you think of?
Disguises itself behind chivalry. Mansplaining.
Controlling and unemotional.
And women should glide through the world that I create instead of creating her own world.
Feeling like you have to be like a big, tough guy to be a man.
Conquer and destroy kind of mentality.
Well, when you were in your 20s, you were all in on the idea that masculinity is toxic, so much so that you set out to make the documentary, The Red Pill. Can you talk to me about how you changed in your beliefs as you were making this documentary?
That was in my 20s, and I made quite a few films with that mindset. I was really a feminist filmmaker. I was making films about women's rights and also LGBTQ issues. And I saw men as the oppressors of women throughout history. I believed that women made 77 cents on a man's dollar, and I believed in the patriarchy. So I set out to make a film exposing misogynists. Even while I was filming, I was still really resistant to what I was hearing. I was angry and was even getting hives just thinking about how much I disliked what they were saying. But then when I put the pen to paper, I think that's when I really started to question my beliefs. I couldn't argue with what they were saying. And when I did the fact checking with the statistics that they were putting out there about history and about gender roles, I realized that they were right. And then when I was transcribing the feminist interviews, I was realizing there were a lot of plot holes.
Rape apologist, incest supporting, woman hating scum.
The feminists really didn't understand the men's rights argument very well. And so because they didn't understand it very well, they couldn't debate it very well.
Don't even start with that whole, oh, but you don't think about the men's issue. Well, then you know what? Start your own movement, which they have, but maybe make it a little more about legitimate issues.
And I realized that they weren't really listening to the men's rights perspective. The more and more I've dug into men's issues and boys' issues, the more I realize how important a present father is in a child's life. And that never became more apparent to me than in the last 3 years of starting my own journey of having a son and now a second son.
When you remove masculinity, you don't get docile, weak men. You get dangerous men that lash back out at society.
There's a really great African proverb that says, a child who is not embraced by the village will burn it down to feel its warmth.
Over time, it seems like toxic masculinity has become a catch-all term for any male behavior that someone finds offensive or unpleasant. This inconsistent, arbitrary criticism leads many men to fall into the trap of actual toxic behavior. As I think about becoming a father one day, I want to understand just how important a male figure is in a child's life. Manhood isn't something that just happens by accident. Tell me about your upbringing and the masculine role models that you had growing up.
Well, for me, it was a little bumpy. So I was born to a teenage mom. So I was born to a fatherless household. I think I was in jeopardy before my stepfather came around. Statistically speaking, I definitely was in jeopardy. The guys going to jail, the mental illness, everything says that without a father or a man in the house, you're vulnerable. I don't want my family, my children to be vulnerable. My presence changes everything for them. They can sleep at night. They know if there's a threat, their father will deal with it.
I have an 8-year-old daughter who is absolutely dynamic, who can do anything. Athletically, intellectually, spiritually, and emotionally, she is a dynamo. The fact is, I don't want her playing against boys in soccer. I don't even let my sons rough her up. Do you think I'm going to let your son rough her up?
I'm going to pause a little bit there because it is very true. And I don't want to talk badly because this is a family situation, right? With me, I grew up with a single mother in the home, me and my brother, and everything seemed pretty much normal to us. My brother had his father in his life, but he wasn't in the household. He was in another household, right? And with me, my father was in and out of my life depending on the situation. He was a drug addict. And it was hard trying to understand as a child that, hey, he's a drug addict. It's not that he doesn't love you. It's just he's fighting an addiction. And the thing is that it has bothered me for a really, really long time. And it's one of the things that I don't think about it anymore, but I used to think about it a lot. I was like, okay, am I gay because of some type of situation that happened to me in my life and I didn't have a father in my home? It's highly possible. It could be possible. It's really wrong for me to be like, nope, that's not it. Completely not it. Because I don't know, right? I don't know how my mind went through that situation. Like I said, I never had my father, and I can't even remember. Probably had my father in the house at 2 years old, and then after he probably left. But it's crazy because situations like that could mold someone, right? To make us a different, a different pathway. And it's like I said, it's funny because a lot of people would be like, do you think that you were born this way, or do you think that something happened to you? And I would say I don't know, right? I don't know. I don't feel like the science is backed enough to say I was born this way, especially now since politics are all put their hands in science now. It's really hard to say if they're just making it up to just be like, oh, you see, gay is normal and stuff like that. But it's one of the things that I have to possibly be open to the fact of, yeah, there must have been something in my childhood that switched that thing for me, right? So I kind of, this almost the same. I don't know his story completely, but it's almost the same situation. I didn't have a father in the home. There wasn't a man in the home constantly, so I didn't know how it was to, I guess, quote unquote, be a man, right? All I know is what my mom taught me. And even though she tried her best and everything like that, I always felt like something was missing in my life, and I knew it was because of my father. And I still struggle to this day. If I'm being super honest, I still struggle to this day about not having father in my, in my life. And that, dude, I'm like 30 years old now, okay? And I'm still trying to talk about it and still understand that situation. Which I should probably see a therapist, but these days therapists are kind of cuckoo in the head. So so I'm still trying to dissect that situation and see exactly, the things that I'm missing out on. Are there things that I could possibly learn, right? There's things that I'm learning now that I'm like, oh, that seems like something a father would probably do. And obviously I don't have kids. I don't plan to have children, but if that comes around, and I think that's one of the most scariest things of me not wanting to be a father, is because number one, I don't know how to be a father. I never had a father figure in my life until later on, right? And even that, I wasn't even living at home. Like by the time my mother met her current husband, I think I was like 19 and I was already out of the house. So again, not living in the situation. So I think that's one of the things that I'm afraid of when having children, when me and my husband have children. And the other one, number two important thing is that technically having two male in the house, right? Are they going to see how it is to grow up with a mother? No, they're not. So, do I want to take away that experience that each child should have? Probably not. So, that's one of the struggles that I have in regards to us having children. Because I do believe that there should, a child should have, you know, a feminine energy in the household and the female oh my god, I just said the same thing. A female energy and a masculine energy in the household. And having two males, yeah, we're gay, so it might be a little bit, feminine. But what I mean is that there's certain characteristics that a female brings to the home that I may or and my husband may not bring to the home. So let's continue.
We have this idea right now that men and women are completely equal, that they're almost interchangeable. Is that correct?
No, not even close. I mean, my wife was gone for the weekend. My children can see a big difference between mommy and daddy. She brings this softness, this nurturing. I bring this charge, this demand, this expectation. And it's not planned that way. It's just masculinity. Who am I naturally as a man?
It's tough for boys today, and I feel for them because they're told that they're toxic if they hold the door open. All these things that were seen as chivalrous are now looked down upon.
I teach my sons, they open the door for their mother, and get this, they open it for their sister. We put a premium on our role. They say, well, everything should be equal, not equal in responsibility. We're equal in value. And the fact that we're not the same is what allows us to shine. My wife's femininity is able to flourish because of me, but so is my masculinity. Who I am as a man and a father, very different. Without her contrast there, my sons wouldn't get the same lesson. My daughter wouldn't get the same lesson.
We have seen the damaging impact of society, public figures, and the media vilifying masculinity and disregarding the role of fathers at home.
Now, I just want to stop real quick because this is exactly what I'm talking about, right? Could children be raised with a single parent or two dads or two moms? Of course they can, right? They could still be raised, they can still grow up. But the problem is I would not want to take that away from a child that I'm raising. That's all. Each person naturally has a role. Each person has, like what he said, I bring the protection. I bring, the hardness, where my wife brings in the careness, the affectionate. So it's almost like a nice balance between the two, where I don't know. Two women that raise children, could those children be a little naggy? Probably. Can two men raise children? Of course. Are they going to be too masculine or are they going to be feminine? We don't know. But to take away that experience of having a mother and a father in a home, I think that's what bothers me. Because again, I didn't have a father in the home and it bothers me to this day.
But what do our psychological establishments say about men's roles in relationships and society at large?
Dr. Chloe Carmichael, New York clinical psychologist and relationship expert. Good to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
It's a great subject. A lot of people are interested in
this idea of that masculinity is synonymous with violence or war, these other negative stereotypes. When people start to believe this, it makes sense that they would want to neutralize masculinity, if not destroy it altogether.
One of the things that to me has stood out as a psychologist is that the American Psychological Association came out with these guidelines about working with men and boys. And it really, in my opinion, pathologized traditional masculinity. The entire document was really full of criticisms of things like a drive for success, a drive for power, a drive for competition, all of which are actually things that can really help society.
Are women more dissatisfied in their relationships with men today?
yes, I mean, statistics show that women and men are actually both unhappy. And there could be a lot of different social drivers around that. But I do think it's important to look at and consider the fact that maybe we're forcing people into these politically correct boxes that don't necessarily fit. For example, women don't typically even say want to date a man who makes less money than they do. Women typically don't want to date a man who's shorter than they are. That points to the simple fact that women tend to be drawn to a man who is at least able to provide and to protect. I just feel like there's a lack of acknowledgement about the role of men and their contributions. Just like these young women want a man who's going to love and respect them as a woman, I would encourage them to think about offering the same gift to their boys and men.
Right. It's not that difficult to be like, hey, can I do it by myself? Yes. Is it ideal? No. But men are very important, right? I could do it by myself, but men are super important. And I think that's just very, very important to point out. That you can believe that you can do something independently, but still say at the same time, but if I had a choice, I would do it with a man, right? If I had, you know, men are very important still, no matter what, when it comes to jobs, when it comes to, the household things, we need a man.
Do you think traditional masculinity is good?
I don't think anything traditional is good. I think everything is supposed to evolve. What's traditionally masculine or feminine doesn't work in today's society.
You think that society needs strong men?
Women can be strong too. But
Talking about women, does society need strong men?
I would only say certain jobs.
Do we not need men to protect us?
I don't think we need men to protect people in particular, because I don't really believe on the implications of social gender.
What about building the roads and going to war and, and sewage jobs and construction? Don't we need men for certain things?
We need just bodies for a lot of things. What people call manpower is just body power. And guess what? Women have bodies too.
This is a load of horse shit, and I'm sorry to say, because yeah, it's nice and dandy to be like, well, anyone could do the job. Well, anyone could be a construction worker. Well, anyone could do this. But in reality, where we live at, women don't want to do these jobs. Women do not want to do these things. So I'm very confused on why people can't just be like, oh yeah, you're right. I mean, I wouldn't want to be doing this. So I don't understand why another woman would want to be doing this as well. Again, brainwashed.
Depression for a man is that feeling, nobody wants me. I'm not needed anymore. Basically, I'm out of work. Nobody there to respond to me. Nobody there for me to fix, help, serve, support. Being out of work is the major depression for men, or being in a marriage where you feel you can't do anything to make your partner happy. And that's why depression is very different for a man than for a woman.
Men and women are different. Biologically, we're different. And to respect those differences is not equality. When the people say we want gender equality, what they're asking for is gender sameness. Men and women are different in a positive way.
Can you talk to me a little bit more about...
I'm sorry. I keep pausing this now. And I said I wasn't going to pause it. But it's so funny because this is almost the same way, right? And it's a little insight into a male gay relationship. My husband hates when I do things for myself, right? And I don't know if it's just like a natural thing or he just doesn't like it. Like every time that there's like something to do out in the yard, or having to fix something, or having to fix the plumbing, or having to do something, I always tend to just do it myself, right? Why not? And he would get mad when he comes home and he'd be like, why didn't you wait for me? I don't understand why you can't wait for me. And it bothers him. And I think that's where that need of being needed, if that makes sense, right? The need to be like, wow, I know you can do it by yourself, but can you let me do this? And I've been really a little bit better on it, because I also think that he should do the same thing in my way. But this is exactly, it's so funny that they mention that, because it's the need. And usually when a man is not needed, they feel depressed, right? They feel like, I don't know, they just, I think this is the main reason why a lot of young men are still staying with their parents at home because there's not a need. Women don't need them anymore. And I feel like men have to have this type of family need in order to thrive, right? Let's keep watching.
That need for seeing a healthy relationship between a man and wife and that effect it has on the kids.
Yeah, it's so important. 25% of children today are growing up in a household without a father. 50% of African American boys are growing up without a father. You have no role model at all of I can be a powerful, good man. They don't know what that is. And a good man is someone that women trust. So does my mother trust dad?
And the prevailing narrative today is that traditional gender roles aren't necessary anymore because they were completely a result of a social construction.
Yes. Let me interrupt. It was a social construction by wise people to make men good and make women happy. That was the social construction that did it. That's why my family could be so happy growing up. It was the 50s. A man could earn enough money to support his wife. She could spend time with her children until they grew up. She could hire help to help her with her children. She could live in a safe neighborhood. That's all gone. Middle class is crashing down.
We've gone too far. We've gotten too progressive, and taking a couple steps back into traditional gender roles is probably what we need right now.
Well, what suffers is boys. What suffers is girls. Boys don't know what it means to be a man. Girls don't know what it means to be a woman, where you can depend on someone and you don't have to do it all. Our children are confused.
John Rosamond has a master's degree in psychology, is the father of 2 and the grandfather of 7. He has been offering parenting advice through his column and books for decades.
Can you tell me about how this idea of the family center being the husband and wife has changed throughout your lifetime?
The American family over the last 50 years has become a matriarchy. The American father is becoming more and more irrelevant. That dad is not the child-rearing authority, mom is. The dad's opinion, it's often treated as irrelevant. His voice is a nuisance. When boys grow up without fathers, they don't understand what authentic masculinity looks like, and they get involved in drugs, and they get involved in gangs, and they get involved in other things that are symptoms of a fake masculinity that is overtaking America. Women, greater and greater.
Let me tell you something. I mean, even people with 2 parents in their home, they still go into selling drugs and being, teenage criminals or whatever, however you want to put it. But that's the difference, right? Between a healthy home and a non-healthy home.
Percentage of them really do believe that they can get along without men.
Why can't they?
Men embody traits that women don't have, and women don't realize it, but when push comes to shove, women will look to men for protection.
What are some ways that you've seen as a child therapist that education and child raising has changed that's had a negative impact on young boys?
The primary example of this is the diagnosis of ADHD. But probably 3 out of every 4 kids are boys. The message is there's something wrong with you, and this pill will correct it. I think translating the sense of induced helplessness in our young male population, whenever I hear of a young person in his mid-20s, even early 30s, who's living in the parents' basement, it's always a young man. And I think that this reflects that young men are just kind of losing a sense of purpose. And we don't realize deprecation of the American male is going to seriously weaken American culture. We need men. We need women, but we need men.
What's your personal message to boys and young men?
Something that a lot of women have wrong about men is they think that men are about domination and control. And I actually think ultimately what men want, I think they want to be loved and appreciated and seen for their sacrifices. And I don't think that's what our society is doing right now.
I hope that men would figure out that they were created for God. They were created to be a son, a husband, and a father. And it's okay to be a man.
Sharing your life with someone, that's what life is really about. And it's through good relationships with someone who's very different from you. So many women say, what do I need a man for? Well, you're never going to have a man till you figure it out.
I hope that men have the fortitude to stand up against this assault. I don't think that they need to wait for permission from anybody. That's part of the masculine role, I think, is to be able to just assert who he is and to be who he is.
My personal message to young boys, young men, is that your highest calling in life is to be a good husband. More than anything else would be your greatest contribution to our culture.
When masculinity is vilified, the path inevitably leads to a more feminine culture, dissatisfied women, confused children, and a broken society. But when traditional virtues like assertiveness, strength, and confidence are harnessed for good, they enable men to pursue greatness, protect others, and rise to life's most difficult challenges. So, men, harness your masculinity, seek out responsibility, and lead with courage.
Wow. Wow, that was awesome. Um, that was really, really great. I think this quick, is it a documentary? I guess it would be. But it's true. It's true. I think that one of the greatest aspect of men is assertiveness, right? And I think that you have full responsibility to say, no, we have a voice. We can stand up for ourselves. Don't put us down. If you don't want a man, goodbye. You crazy. But yeah, that was awesome. So I would highly recommend you guys share this video. This video is awesome. Again, recommend this book if you haven't bought it yet. I'll put a link below or their social media below so that you guys can get this book. And I'll probably put a link on this video so you guys can sit down and watch it with your couple, your friends, whoever. So thank you for tuning in to this episode. I hope you guys learned a lot. I hope that, masculinity. You see, I can't say that word. I think it's my Spanishness that's not letting me say it. I think it's important. I think it truly is important, and it's as equally important as females, right?